It was at least 5 below zero Saturday night when we slept out. It was above freezing in here.
Oh, okay. Did you bring a thermometer in, or are you just guessing it was above freezing?
I didn't bring the thermometer in. I wanted to, but by the time I'd gotten in there, I was already in my sleeping bag. When I remembered the thermometer, I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. You know what an igloo is. Do you know what a quinzee is? You will if you make it through the middle part of today's show. John Holyoke, outdoor writer for the Bangor Daily News, says he's going to sleep in one. We'll meet the person who already did. At the end of today's show, I'll plunk down $10 at a snowmobile poker run in Milford. Spoiler alert, I usually lose these things. But the first part of today's show is going to the dogs. The Can-Am 250 is going on next weekend. It's the biggest sled dog race in Maine. We're not going there. It turns out you can have a lot of fun just running your dogs near home. The Maine Highland Sled Dog Club held a race in Exeter last weekend. Boy, if you want to see some happy dogs, go to one of these races. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dysart's, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. As today's show begins, Jill Carter has just crossed the finish line. Well, Jill, you're president of the Maine Highland Sled Dog Club.
Right.
I guess my first question is, when somebody comes up to you and says dog sled racing, don't you just want to reach out and slap them? Because it's sled dog racing, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I would say sled dog racing is used more often, yes. Yeah, I would go along with that.
Well, the event here today, could you describe what the entire event is?
Well, this is what we call our Exeter race, and this is an annual, we've had this race here before for a few years. We're at the Crane Brothers Potato Farm here in Exeter, and they're so kind as to allow us to hold this event here, so it's really nice.
They're getting all excitable. In fact, that's one of the things I noticed, is that the dogs are all excitable, they bark a lot, until they're out on the trail, and then it's just dead silence.
Absolutely. They want to go, and once they get out there and they're doing their job, they just get down to work, and it's very quiet.
Yeah. Now, this is obviously not the Can-Am 100. This is really club level, and so there's a huge difference between some of the races that are available throughout the state.
Right. This is called a sprint race. Most sprint races are maybe 4 to 15 miles in length. And then you have middle distance races. We just had one up in Greenville. It was a 30-mile and a 60-mile. And then we have the Can-Am, and that's 250 miles. Still considered probably upper middle distance. But most of the club races we have and the other club in the state down east, Sled Dog Club, have sprint races.
People mostly do it for fun, or how's this all
Well, our club is recreational only. We don't have purses. We don't have purse races, money races. We're plaques and awards only. So our club, our focus is really on training, mentorship. We're here for novice mushers, people who just want to try it out. But we run our races just like the pros do. We have we time everybody. We have rules. You have to come to the driver's meeting to get all the instructions. You have to carry all the proper equipment on your sled. So we run it just like a pro race, but we don't pay out any money.
Right.
So
and they're usual.
And it's a lot more fun, let me tell you.
Well, it does seem like there's not a lot of pressure on anybody here today.
Exactly. You know, when you throw money into it, you know, that always changes the dynamics so much. And so our race, we welcome anybody. If you've never been on skis before with a dog, this is a place for you to come and try it out.
Which is what you just did.
Yes.
You did the whole 4 mile loop?
I did 4 miles, yeah.
With 2 dogs pulling you the whole way.
Yes, right. And it was a good run.
Yeah. Well, conditions, I assume, are actually very good today.
Excellent. The trail was very well groomed. A lot of people put a lot of time into grooming these trails for the races.
Yep. It's a cold morning, but
it's very cold. Yep.
Snow is fast and deep.
Yeah, it was very good. And, you know, all the people who are involved in these races, we have groomers, the trail help who stand out on corners to make sure your team doesn't go off the trail. You know, these are all volunteers, and they're all out here on a very, very cold day. So it's really a a great effort.
Well, it's a labor of love because
it is.
In reality, you've got one of these races for volunteers every 1 to 2 weeks.
Yes, we do. Yep. We have about 4 or 5 races a year.
And they're just hitching up another team right in front of us, which means the dogs are all excitable and barking and waiting to get their place in line.
And they'll be barking until they take off, as you saw with the other teams.
Yeah. Now, obviously, as a dog handler, you have to be able to read your dogs, know when they're tired, when they have a challenge, when the snow is a difficulty, when one's not feeling up to par.
Right. And that's kind of that's sort of the essence of dog mushing, I guess, is working with your dogs all the time, getting to know their usual behaviors, who likes to run in what position, and so if you work with your dogs all the time and you get to know them when they're healthy, you'll be more aware of when something happens to them. And that's what a lot of people in this sport really like. They enjoy that relationship with their dogs.
When you see movies of the Klondike, you hear guys yelling mush and cracking whips. You don't see any of that at one of these races.
No, absolutely not. No, the word mush is, I don't know that I've ever really heard that. People do use different things for getting their dogs to take off, but I don't think I've ever heard mush. And whips are absolutely forbidden in any race. So
I presume there's a standard of care that's expected for each dog.
Yes, there is. There are rules. For example, for ski joring, which I just did, you're not allowed to ski with metal-edged skis because that could cut the dog's feet. You have to have a quick-release mechanism on your belt in case something happens, and you have to release the dog quickly. And the sledders, they have rules, too. They have to carry certain equipment. The harnesses need to have so much padding on them. There are a lot of rules, and it's all about the safety of the dogs, really. The mushers, they can do whatever they want. We're more concerned about the dogs.
Yep. Obviously, it's an important choice to decide which dog is a lead dog. What goes into making that choice?
I think for most mushers, they would tell you that the lead dog sort of lets you know that they're going to be the lead dog. It's going to be the dog that is more in tune to the musher, pays attention, follows commands, will take the team through maybe some adverse conditions without stopping or freezing. And it's a special dog, and not all dogs are cut out to be lead dogs. And I think you can do some training, but it really is a special dog that ends up being the lead.
Yeah, does the lead dog have to convince the other dogs or just the musher?
Well, I think it's both, really. The lead dog has to lead the dogs on the team. If the lead dog turns left or right, the rest of the team has to go. There can't be an argument on the trail.
Now, they've just hitched up a 6-dog team. We had the 4-dog races earlier. Is there a technical term for the dogs that are closest to the sled, wheel dogs or anything like that?
Yeah, the 2 dogs closest to the sled are called wheel dogs, and they tend to be the biggest dogs. They're actually turning the sled when you're cornering. The middle dogs are called the team dogs, and then the leaders are up front.
And teams can go as high as, 14 or more? Or not for these races, perhaps? But
no, usually, in some sprint races, probably the longer sprint races, they have what's called an open class where you can put as many dogs on as you want. But you have to have the right conditions, the right trail. It has to be a safe situation for that. And then in the middle distance races, you're probably going to see 12 to 16 dogs usually.
With too many dogs, I would think just going around a soft corner, you'd just let it go off the trail and then powder and you'd be in trouble anyway.
And that's where the training really pays off. That's where the leaders, lead your team, keep it on the trail, and everybody does their job.
Jill Carter is my guest. She's president of the Maine Highland Sled Dog Club. We'll meet some dogs and meet some mushers in a few minutes, but I cannot hold back on this question any longer. Does it matter if the lead dog is male or female? This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Stand by. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. The Maine Highland Sled Dog Club held a race in Exeter last weekend. Members of the Downey Sled Dog Club were there too. Jill Carter is president of the Highlands Club, and she just actually completed the 4-mile dog race on skis, getting dragged around by a pair of jubilant dogs. They're getting ready now for the 6-dog race, so pardon the excitable barking in the background. Does it matter at all whether the dogs are male or female, or whether the lead dog is male or female?
No, I mean, some mushers, I think, have preferences. Some people think males, are bigger, stronger, so they're going to pull better. But I don't really think there's a male or female difference.
Now, I saw that most of the sleds are the traditional wooden sleds, but there was one that was not.
Yeah.
Is there a change in the sleds and technology now?
I would say definitely yes. What you see here are most of the traditional wooden slat sleds, but there are some really metal, lightweight sleds that you see in sprint races and middle distance races. And they're just incredibly fast. So the technology has changed a lot. And then in the distance races, you would see a completely different type of sled. These are really called sprint sleds. You're not carrying a lot of equipment on them. In the distance race, you would have what's called a toboggan sled, where you're carrying camping gear and everything else.
Now, as I understand it, there's no breaks out there in the trail. If the dog's got to poop, it's on the run.
Yep, that's what you train them to do.
Do they need the training, or is it just they follow the urge when it arrives?
Well, I think they get used to it. They know nobody's going to stop to allow that, so that's what they learn to do.
Now, for somebody who actually wants to come out and witness one of these events, or find out what your schedule is, find out how to get involved, you have a website.
We have a website, and we're also on Facebook. So our schedule's posted on both places. If a race is canceled, we'll usually cancel it the Wednesday before the weekend race.
Well, you've got the 6-dog race. I guess, what would you call it? Race? Heat? Anyway, 6-dog teams are lining up.
Yeah.
And once the dogs are in the harness, they start to settle down and get ready to pull. They just keep tugging until they're released.
They're very excitable until they get out there, and that's why you see a lot of people holding on to the lines. I mean, I've seen them, they leap, just leap right up in the air. They're just, can't wait.
One of the things I think I was misinformed about is I expected all these teams of dogs to squabble with each other more. They bark a lot, but they really don't seem to be insulting each other.
No, you do see fights once in a while, but again, these dogs are so used to doing this. They do this a lot. This is just one event, but folks are training their dogs all the time, and they get used to it. And once in a while you can't run this dog next to this dog because they just don't get along, but you don't usually see a lot of fights.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're about to send off the first team, so I'll let you focus on that, and thank you very much, Jim.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Let's meet some dogs and mushers. Jen Barnes of Corinth won the 4-dog race. Well, basically, the team that just crossed had Siberian Huskies or Alaskan Huskies, but you don't.
No.
What do you have? What are these guys?
I guess technically you'd call them Alaskan Huskies. Mm-hmm. They're kind of a mutt. They got a little bit of everything in them. My lead dog here is mostly actually German short-haired pointer.
Okay, yeah.
So they got a lot of pointer in what I run.
Okay, so why run these dogs as opposed to what people traditionally think of as sled dogs?
Right. The speed, mostly. They can go really fast, but for shorter distances, their feet aren't as hardy. They don't have as thick of a coat, but they go really fast. They got a big lung capacity, so they can really move. And where I only travel short distances for speed, they're perfect for me.
Okay. Does that mean you have an advantage over all the other people who are running Huskies? The other?
Not necessarily. There's some pretty fast Siberians out there, but I try to keep up.
So how often do you get a chance to run them in a race?
In a race?
Yeah.
We could go somewhere every weekend, in the New England and Canada area.
And do you?
No.
Or is that just nuts? That's just too much.
If I have a really good team and there's races that I like, I'll go. But we try to do 4 or 5 a year.
Now, the race you just completed, how long was that?
Just 4 miles. Yep.
And is there anywhere along the way where the dogs look like they're not having fun?
No. Sometimes I might look that way, but they're always having fun.
It looks like it. I have never seen dogs happier. It's like a Labrador retriever with a tennis ball. They all seem to...
They love to run any way, shape, form. They love to get out and run.
Now, what do you do with them in the summer to keep them in shape or motivated? Or
I don't do a lot. It's so hot. I don't like to. I have a big fenced-in yard. I let them run loose in. They have a swimming pool to cool off in, but nothing too strenuous till it gets cooler.
They actually like cold temperatures.
Yes. Yeah, colder.
How cold is just too cold for them?
Anything below 0, I actually I put them in the truck in the garage and keep them warm. But they love to run in the cold. I thought when I got into the German Shorthairs that they would like the warm better, but they love the cold. The colder the better, they run better.
No kidding. Is there ever a day when they look like they just don't want to get out of bed, or are they just there every time?
They might not want to get out of bed, but you show a harness or the sled, and it's forgotten. Yeah.
Now, for your lead dog, how did you manage to pick that dog as lead? Did the dog sort of pick herself?
Pretty much, yeah. You could tell by the demeanor of the dog and the way they act, and they want to be up front and they want to learn, and I always say if they can outsmart you, the biggest pain is probably your best lead dog.
That sets the bar pretty low for me. Now, I wasn't sure that you would even have a female as a lead dog.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter?
Nope, it doesn't. I've actually had really good luck with females in lead. I only have the one female. That's enough. The rest are all boys. They just follow her lead.
Let's jump over one truck where 4 very different dogs are resting tired but happy. So these aren't what people normally think of as the dogs that race in sled dog races. You seem to have a mix of dogs.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Okay, I got a border collie.
Yeah, who would think a border collie is going to be a sled dog?
Well, they're pretty tough little dogs.
Yep.
They're pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. And this one?
These are basically what they call Alaskan Huskies. They're mixed breed dogs.
And that one looks like part lab.
Yeah, he's a lab.
Is he?
He's the noisiest one of the bunch.
Now, which one was your leader?
Those two.
Is that right?
Yeah, the border collie and this Alaskan here. Yeah.
Border collies are just very smart, aren't they?
Yeah, border collies are smart, and his biggest problem is he's got soft hair.
Yeah.
And which makes snow or ice balls in between their pads. And if you see him trying to get rid of the snow in between his pads, that's what he's doing. I trim the hair between his pads to help him out a little bit, but he still gets them anyway. But he doesn't like booties, so I can't keep booties on him. So, but he likes to go, and he has fun, and he's obedient, so that's why I use him. Yeah.
Makes a good lead dog, and besides it's 4 miles, so he can handle that, I take it.
Yeah.
Jeff Ladd won the 8-dog race, and these are all Siberian Huskies. So when people think of sled dogs, this is the breed of dog they're really thinking of. They look like Huskies.
Yes, they're Siberian Huskies.
Mm-hmm. Now, you seem to have, 11 Siberian Huskies with you? Did you leave any at home?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I left some in heat and some that just ain't in shape enough to run.
It must cost you a lot of kibbles and bits to keep these guys operational.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only hobby I have.
Yeah.
So.
Where'd you come from? How far did you come?
Northampton, Maine.
So what got you into sled dog racing so that you're so committed to have that many dogs?
It was just something I always wanted to do as a young kid. I mean, I watched a few sled dog movies when I was a young kid, and I always wanted to do it. So when I got old enough, I went and bought me some dogs and got back into it.
There you go. Sled dog racing close to home here on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Coming up, you're going to learn what a quinzee is. In fact, within about 10 minutes, I'll be on my hands and knees crawling into one. When I get back in a moment, you'll find out why. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. A few weeks ago, Bangor Daily News outdoor writer John Holyoke asked for winter camping tips from his readers. He received quite a few, and one challenge. Diane Kopek is an adjunct professor at Unity College. She's teaching a winter ecology course this semester, and she volunteered to have her students build a quinzee on campus that John could try out for himself by sleeping in it on a cold winter night. An igloo is built by carving snow into bricks and stacking them. A quinzee is a snow shelter made by piling all the snow in a pile and hollowing it out. Natives made them primarily in northwestern Canada. Igloos were more prevalent in far northern and eastern Canada, where snow conditions are different. One problem: Diane Kopek had never actually built one before. So, she built one for practice in her backyard and tried it out. So this is a quinzee.
Yes, it is.
What is the derivation of the word quinzee? Because honestly, I'd always heard of igloo, never heard of quinzee.
An igloo is built by the native peoples who live in the far north, where the snow is packed down by the wind, and you can cut blocks out and actually build a house the way you would out of bricks. But a quinzee is used by people where you don't have the wind-blown snow, but it's just snow that falls down. And by digging it up from the ground all the way to the surface and then piling it on a pile, you get snow of different temperatures. And they sinter together. They what? They sinter? They sinter.
Is that a crossword puzzle word?
Oh, it should be.
Okay.
It should be.
Probably is.
The snowflakes that fall from the sky look like crystals, and they're the ones that you see hanging from the street poles all the time in the winter. Those are dendritic snowflakes. And after they...
Dendritic?
Dendritic.
I'm glad we're having this talk.
So many things, yes. When those fall to the ground, there's a lot of airspace in between them. After they've sat on the ground for a while, a process known as destructive metamorphism occurs in the snowpack. And the delicate arms of the snowflakes break off, and they leave these snow granules that bond together more strongly than individual snowflakes do. And when you dig the snow up and pile it in a big pile, that bonding or sintering is enhanced. So you get this really strong mound of snow that you can dig out without it collapsing on top of you.
Because that's the first thing that came to my mind is, why wouldn't this collapse on top of you? It's because all the little arms of the snowflakes break off. They sort of freeze together.
Forming little snow, form little snow granules that bond really tightly together. There's a really nice example over on the garden gate that I can show you.
Okay. Yeah, we should describe where we are. We're actually on the edge of Pushaw Lake as it flows into Pushaw Stream. It's probably 0 degrees, at least it was when I got up this morning. Wind chill -10, and we're outside standing next to this, what looks like an igloo but isn't, that stands taller than we are. How long did it take you to pile up the snow?
It took us about 2 hours to pile the snow together, and then about 2.5 hours to dig out. Yeah, and create the shelter.
All right, well,
it's like firewood. You get warm creating it, and then you have a warm place to go after you've built it.
Or you could just sit in next to the fireplace and not ever do this.
Well, that's true. That is true.
That's my next question. This all was inspired by John Holyoke's column. John was talking about winter camping, and you volunteered your Unity College students to build him a quinzee.
Well, there was a nice connection because I'm teaching winter ecology this semester. And I had just gone through snow morphology with the students and talked about destructive metamorphism, changes in the snowpack, and that those changes allow you to build a quinzee. And then John's column came out. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I just wrote him a letter. Hey, we could build this for you. And
so now he's going to sleep in it.
Yes.
So is he going to sleep in there with company or by himself, or has this been determined?
The first time I heard about it, he and his photographer are sleeping in there, which will make it warmer. More bodies generate more heat.
Yeah. Well, I would think that's the next question is, don't you size these according to the number of people you're going to want in it?
Yes, we're going to have John lay down in the snow, and then we'll, and hopefully his partner, and then we'll figure out how large we need to make it based on that.
Okay. So the actual method of making this, you pile up all the snow. Do you actually pack it down from the top, or does it settle onto itself?
No, you don't want to pack it. You don't want to pack it from the top because you want to maintain those air spaces in the snow. If they're not there, you lose your insulation. The process is you first tamp down the snow using your feet or snowshoes.
Where you're going to build it.
Where you're going to build it. In the circle you're going to build it. And you can create that circle by just swinging a ski pole around in a circle. It makes a really nice outline for you. And then you just start piling the snow on top. It's really important that you get snow of different temperatures. And snow
at 0 degrees, how does that happen?
Oh, because that's constructive yes. Yes, it's so cool. the Earth is always giving off heat, so snow at the bottom of the snowpack is warmer than snow at the top of the snowpack, where it's exposed to the air.
Oh.
So at the bottom of the snowpack, you actually get sublimation because it's warmer down there and it's very humid, creating depth hoar, which are fragile snow crystals that you can break through pretty easily. And when you dig up the snowpack, you can see it. I could get a shovel and do that right now.
Is this going to be in the midterm?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
I'm in trouble. If I get a C+ out of this, I'll be lucky.
So it's important not to just take the snow off the top of the snowpack that's cold, similar to air temperature, but to go down to depth and get it from the ground all the way up. And that way, the different temperatures of snow work together and increase the bonding in your snow pile. But you just pile it all up and then let it sit, at least for a couple hours. You can let it sit overnight. If it's really cold, that's going to enhance the bonding. We just let ours sit about 2 hours because it was getting late. And we needed,
and common sense suddenly sprung up.
We needed a place to sleep on Saturday night. So... and then you start digging it out. And you dig it out using successive arches. How to explain this?
How to explain that on radio?
Yeah.
Where nobody can see you swinging your arms
Well,
like a crazy
but I'm
woman.
doing it very expressively. So after opening up the center...
I'm good.
After opening up the center hole...
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
it's like
see?
a mattress.
Yeah, that's our bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the vestibule or the kitchen area? Or?
Well, and it's also a
It's a spa.
cold sink because we made a raised platform for the bed, so cold air would fall off of the raised platform and down into this hollow in front. But it's important in digging out the quinzee that you not just dig straight into the pile of snow, but rather you reach
up and scoop.
Up and scoop so that you maintain an oval roof surface, a domed roof surface. So we did that. Yes.
Essentially what we're looking into what looks like an igloo but isn't. It's a quinzee. There's 2 layers. The one near the opening is lower than what looks like a big mattress in back.
Yes.
And that's because the cold air will sink down into the lower area.
Yes.
How much difference does that make in degrees?
It was at least 5 below zero Saturday night when we slept out, and it was above freezing in here.
Oh, okay. Did you bring a thermometer in, or are you just guessing it was above freezing?
I didn't bring the thermometer in. I wanted to, but by the time I'd gotten in there, I was already in my sleeping bag. When I
You weren't
remembered the
about to get
thermometer,
out.
I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
If you're just joining us, I'm in the backyard of Diane Kopech. We're standing next to a quinzee, a primitive shelter made from hollowing out a pile of snow in a particularly special way. If all goes according to plan, Diane students at Unity College are going to build one just like this. And Bangor Daily News outdoor writer John Holyoke is going to sleep in it on an upcoming cold winter night. I just hope we have enough snow this winter. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. A quinzee is a primitive snow shelter made by hollowing out a pile of snow. Unity College professor Diane Kopech built this one right here in order to test it out. It was 5 below zero when she spent the night in this one. Her students are now set to build one for Bangor Daily News writer John Holyoke. I'll believe it when I see it. There is some science involved. Sticky versus powder. You want the bottom snow because it's a little warmer and it's got a little more cohesiveness to it.
And the top snow. You have to mix the two together. And you do that by throwing the shovelfuls of snow up onto your pile. You also need to put sticks of uniform length. I cut sticks that were about 30 centimeters long, about 15 inches long, and we poked them into the snow pile before we started digging. That gave us a guide so that we wanted the walls of the quinzee to be about 12 inches deep, 12 inches thick.
Yep.
And when we were hollowing out the inside, when we got to a stick, then we would stop digging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we pulled them out. So when you first start building your quinzee, they sort of look like a porcupine with all these sticks sticking out over the top, but then you can pull those out. You want to come inside?
I think I do. It's not going to collapse.
No.
No.
Do you want me to show you the preferred technique?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Let me hold your microphone.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, you can have your mic back.
Okay.
Oops. There we are. Okay. Now, do I see air holes here? Or is that just cracks?
That sunlight coming through thinner areas of the roof.
Okay. Because that was my next question is, do you actually have air holes or you do need them?
You do need them. We poked 3 air holes through the quinzee with a stick. It was very technical.
Yes, really.
Yeah.
For a moment, I thought you were searching for a scientific term for stick.
Yes.
All right, when you're sleeping here, do you close up the hole?
Yes, we had a blanket over the hole. People often will use a block of snow or a backpack, but we just used a blanket because it was getting late again.
Now, this is a fairly big one. If you were going to do this just for emergency shelter, you wouldn't want something with this much airspace inside, I'm guessing.
Not if you're sleeping by yourself.
Right.
But
I mean, you could have a party in here.
well,
This is pretty big.
this the sleeping platform was just right for 2 people with their sleeping bags zipped together. I guess you could also do it just sleeping side by side. Here's one of our air holes coming up here.
Okay, so that one's natural. I mean, that one's deliberate.
Yes. Yeah.
No need for refrigeration. Do you have a cook stove? How much time are you planning to spend out here?
People have cooked within their quinzees, but then it's really important to not allow carbon monoxide to build up inside, which would kill you.
Yeah.
So they have stovepipes going through the sides.
Okay. Once you're inside, do you actually finish it off at all by smoothing it out or applying water or ice to the surface just to...
We lit a candle inside and let it burn for about 2 hours. I'm not sure it made much of a difference.
Doesn't look like it.
But it looked really pretty. Candlelight on snow at night is beautiful.
Now, how long did you spend out here?
Well,
The night you slept out here?
the night we slept out here, it was a bit of a late night, and dinner was late. We came out about midnight, and we stayed
Slept
until...
until at least 1 a.m.?
No, I got up around 8 the next morning.
Well, when I look in here, obviously you haven't done anything specific to insulate the floor or the bed,
No.
but you obviously brought in sleeping bags, air mattresses. What did you sleep on?
Right. We put down a tarp, 2 blankets, and then we put our regular backpacking sleeping pads on, and then we had our sleeping bags.
And it was about 8 below zero the night you spent out here.
Yes.
So how was it?
It was chilly, but perfectly good temperature for sleeping. You know, we woke up a couple times, but you always tend to do that when you're camping anyway.
Now, was there ever a moment where you said to yourself, what the hell am I doing this for?
No, but there was several times. Several times I was out here thinking, I'm 58 years old and it's taking me this long to do it. I should have done this so many years ago.
What do they teach you about safety just in case this actually does collapse? Anything?
You always need to keep a shovel inside so you can dig your way out. It's important to have vent holes. 3 vent holes are recommended. And that's about it.
You mentioned earlier that when they have a lot of blowing snow, they make igloos. Where they don't have a lot of blowing snow, they make these.
Right. Well, the blowing packs the snow down. It's you need to have snow that's firmly packed together so you can cut blocks out to make an igloo.
Okay. But is there anywhere that it snows but doesn't blow?
Oh, yeah, here in Maine.
You don't think this is enough wind?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, you wouldn't be able to cut blocks. Maybe out on the lake, in the middle of the lake. The snow is packed tightly enough that you could build an igloo.
Okay.
But sure couldn't do it here where we built ours.
Not unless you actually pack the blocks down somehow, I would guess.
Right. And that also, again, if you're packing it down with the increased pressure, that could reduce the ability of the snow to insulate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when John Holyoke does this, how much are you going to advise him ahead of time on what to prepare for? Or are you just going to spring it on him?
Well, my students are building the quinzee for him, and they'll be using what they've learned in class to construct something that's both strong and warm and will be a good shelter for him overnight. It will also demonstrate that pretty much anyone can build these. They're very straightforward to work with, and they provide good emergency shelter and also a lot of fun to sleep in.
Well, I mean, John is expendable. If it were Aislinn Sarnaki, I'd be worried. My guest for this part of the show has been Diane Kopek, adjunct professor at Unity College. Among other things, her winter ecology class this semester is learning about snow, snow characteristics, and how to build a primitive snow shelter called a quinzee. The plan is to build one at the Unity campus and get outdoor writer John Holyoke to spend a night in it. John, if you need any help, I'll be in the sauna. Coming up, I crashed a party a couple of weeks ago. The Pine Tree Snowmobile Club had its annual poker run on February 8th. I dropped in for breakfast and tried my luck. I got my usual bad luck, but not my usual result. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine deals him out next on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You're listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. If you want to see a big number, I started my radio career 43 years ago. In all those years, I've thrown a lot of public service announcements onto the air, and hundreds of them were about poker runs. Motorcycle clubs do them, ATV clubs do them, and certainly snowmobile clubs. There's probably a lot of different ways to do them, but the principle is pretty much the same. You've got to do something that puts 5 or more playing cards into your hand, and you hope your poker hand is better than everybody else's. This is the kind of thing I usually lose. This particular poker run is happening on Sunday, February 8th. There was a lot of snowfall recently, so I'm expecting big smiles inside the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club here in Milford. The trails are groomed, the kitchen is serving breakfast, people are gathered inside. It's about 10 degrees outside, not much wind. Good day for sledding, or a good day for staying in the clubhouse next to the wood fire. Hi, how are you? Hi. I come to crash the party.
Welcome. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
here.
Tell me how this poker run works.
The poker run works. People come in, they purchase a hand. Generally, it is a 5-card hand, but they can buy an additional 2 cards. For the 5-card hand is $7. They can purchase an additional 2 cards and then make their best 5-card hand from that.
Okay.
So they have most everybody takes 7. The cost that we charge is $9. That goes to cover the cost of the operations. Plus, we have a number of prizes donated by local businesses, etc. So what I do, normally we run a loop trail.
Yeah.
But because there's a logging operation this year on the trail that we use, we couldn't do that because we have to consider people's safety. So we're hosting it right here in the club.
Yeah.
Thus far, we've sold 9 hands, and I take a clipboard and I record the cards as they are drawn.
Okay.
So that if there's ever a doubt, we can refer back. Otherwise, I'd never remember. And the best poker hand wins. And we have a ranking of the hands right here.
Yep.
All the way down to a high card.
That's what I would get. And it would be a 9.
Probably. And then at that point, we go through, once we've finished the race, the run, we generally go from 9 to 1. A lot of people come in early, so I come out early. My name's Kathy Carson, by the way. My husband's Dana. He's the president. I'm the first lady. So we rank the hands, and then we determine the high card, the high hand, and we offer a prize of $100 for the high hand. And then from there down, we have donated prizes, and I try to put them in the value order of the value, so that as the hands descend down here, we see who's going to get the second prize and who's going to get the third and fourth. Hi, Joe. The third and fourth prize as we go along. And That's what we do.
Now, does any of this take place out on the trail, or you just?
It would if we had, if we
there.
could get out there.
Yeah.
We've done it many times in the past. There's a loop trail. It's called A Loop, and so we just do that. We have the run and hopefully get a good turnout and response for it. It's a moneymaker for the club.
Oh, of course.
You know, that's what we have to do, as you know.
I very much know.
So, do you have any other questions? What I try to do, if a person purchases a hand of 7 cards, they usually give us a $10 bill.
Yeah.
So we ask them if they want to buy the 50-50 raffle ticket for that extra $1. Well, and I haven't been refused yet. Everybody's done it.
I'm going to do it too.
Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
good. Great.
I never, ever win these things.
Well, this might be your lucky day.
No, it won't.
So, the reality of this, however, is that we played the 7 cards for the best 5 card hand.
Right.
Reality-wise, you could get 5 of a kind, because we're using 5 different decks of cards, 7 different decks of cards. It hasn't happened. We've had 4 of a kind before, but I still think it can happen. Give me just a minute, and I'll tell you how to do this. It's so difficult to do this.
I haven't played poker in a long time, and I was always just terrible at it.
Well, join the club. It is fun, though. It really is a lot of fun. It's nice to interact with people. What I tell people, first I'll give you your change, so I don't forget.
And people can buy more than one hand, I presume.
Absolutely, they do.
I'm not.
No, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either.
I'm perfectly good at losing with one hand.
Do you want to do the ticket?
Yes, absolutely.
Just write your name and phone number on this section, please,
I have
Bob.
never in my life won a 50-50.
Well, I might be able to help you.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, take one card. You can cut the deck or take the top one. I don't care. And put it right here, face up, behind the box.
All right, now you've already shuffled these.
I've shuffled them all.
There's
yes.
just no random advantage to digging down, so we're going to take the top ones.
That's
10.
fine. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
A 5. I've taken 2 cards so far, and they both suck. Oh, but I have another 10.
Look, see? You're doing better already.
All right, after 3 cards, I got a pair. There's a 7.
7s have been lucky so far.
There's
been
a
some.
jack.
Come on, let's move this thing along.
Oh, 3 10s.
3 10s. Okay.
3 10s.
So here's what I do at this point. I record the cards.
Yes.
So what I'll do is I'll say 3 10s. And that's your hand. 3 of a kind. 3
So
10s.
10 hands have been sold so far, and this is the first. I mean, can you tell already whether I'm ahead?
Yes, you're not.
Story of my life. I demand a recount.
Throw another 10 up there, Bob.
Yeah, really. Now that would have been interesting. I was kind of hoping something like that could happen. So you're not out of the running because we haven't sold a lot of hands.
Exactly.
But we're hoping to sell more hands by the day. But the highest hands right now are full houses, 3 of a kind and 2 and a pair.
Yeah.
But,
I was lucky to get the 3.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. One thing the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club is famous for is breakfast every Sunday morning.
We have eggs any way you want them, home fries, bacon, toast, juice, and all the coffee you want.
And you do this
$6.50.
$6.50, and you do that every single Sunday?
We do it for 9 consecutive Sundays, the first Sunday after January 1st, so whatever, and then we usually end the last Sunday of March.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a treat because I'm the director of dining at the university. I don't cook anymore, so now I get to come out here and cook.
When you get to the last weekend, how often is there actually snow?
There's been years when there wasn't any snow any of the breakfasts.
Right, yeah.
But typically, there's a little bit of snow left. What the challenge is, the power line has a lot of streams.
Yeah.
So, depending on, if they're driving or not. But, honestly, if we had enough volunteers, we probably could do this through April. I mean, we have a core of people that come here. You know, there'll always be the guaranteed 35 to 50.
Yep.
50-ish, but...
Now, this is how you know you get a friendly club. Many folks come in just for the food and company. Now, I was wondering if you guys actually come over here to sled or only play cribbage.
Only the cribbage. Everything else is supplementary. Breakfast and cribbage.
Did anybody actually bring a sled?
No.
We brought sled today.
Yeah, actually, the cook did.
You know the cook rode in on a sled this morning, though.
He came up at 5 o'clock this morning.
But who still has sleds? Pat and Bruce still have sleds.
One.
You don't have any sleds anymore.
Mine.
Red, do you still have any sleds?
All I got is ATVs.
You got just ATVs.
I have 1 and 8 in the barn.
8 in the barn.
Yeah, there is. Well, they're all out now.
So this visit to the Pine Tree Snowmobile Club had some surprises. A lot of folks just come in for the food and to play cribbage on Sunday morning. Of course, with good weather on this particular date, many sledders were out sledding. It's been a snowy winter. But this was the big surprise. You know that poker hand I drew, the one with just 3 10s? That certainly wasn't good enough to beat a full house or two, but it was good enough to win a free Pat's Pizza, which in the Duchesne household is Italian gold. I'm just happy whenever I'm not a total loser. One big calendar note, 2 weeks from now, the Easter Maine Sportsman Show will be at the University of Maine, right where it always is. This will be the 77th year. I'll have a preview on next week's show. Also next week, Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns to its usual Saturday time at 9 a.m. And the Sunday show will air at 8 a.m. like always. If you miss either show, every show is archived and ready to podcast at 929theticket.com. It's all brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dice Arts, EBS, and Napa Auto Parts. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.